The date was June 23, 1990, in a small town located inside of Manitoba called Rosisle. There was a rock music festival at a nearby ski resort in which 19-year-old Kyle Unger attended. Also in attendance was 16-year-old Bridget Grenier, an old high school classmate, and 17-year-old Timothy Houlihan. Between midnight and 1:30 a.m., Bridget was observed dancing, kissing, and fondling with 17-year-old Timothy Houlihan. They left the dance area together and made their way to a nearby secluded, wooded part of the resort. The following day, Bridget's body was found lying in a creek in a heavily wooded area of the concert grounds. She had suffered a terrible beating, and she had been bitten and struck several times in the head, strangled, and long, sharp sticks had been forced into her vagina and anus. The town of Rosisle was distraught and panicked. The pressure was on for police to find who did this. The start of Kyle Unger's wrongful conviction began with the police investigation and progressed significantly through the various levels of the criminal justice system. The police were convinced 2 people were involved in this crime and sought a story and evidence to verify their beliefs. This created severe tunnel vision, as the police were now looking to arrest 2 people instead of the 1 person who may have been responsible for the crime.
Police will be focused. They will have tunnel vision, and they will focus on an individual and put aside whatever exonerates that person.
Police then deliberately implicated Kyle Unger into Timothy's statement by asking Timothy if he had seen Kyle at the venue, to which he responded he had not, but proceeded to give police a description of his attacker that led the RCMP to conclude it was Kyle who attacked him. The next time police spoke to Timothy, he directly incriminated Kyle in Bridget's murder and gave the police a detailed description of the murder. Timothy claimed that while Kyle was savagely attacking Bridget, Kyle insisted that Timothy punch her a couple times. Timothy then claimed to have assisted Kyle in moving the body and said that he only did so out of fear for his own safety. Jailhouse informants are extremely unreliable sources of testimony and have contributed to numerous wrongful convictions. Approximately 15% of all wrongful convictions have involved a jailhouse informant. Typically, jailhouse informants receive something in return for their testimony and have ulterior motives.
Rats or fakes or whatever you want to call them are exceptionally unreliable. I guarantee you I can bring you people who will say you've murdered somebody and you confess to them. If you want to buy it and pay for it, you'll get it. You can empty the jails if you want. I mean, who wouldn't?
In Kyle's case, the prosecution was looking for more evidence against him, so the RCMP interviewed over 20 inmates in the hopes of finding someone who would testify against Kyle. The RCMP found 5 inmates who were willing to testify, but only one had a story that was seen as reliable at the time. This man was named Jeffrey Cohen, and he claimed while Kyle was in pretrial custody, he had told Jeffrey, "I killed her," and got away with it.
The Supreme Court is calling into question Mr. Big police stings. The controversial technique involves undercover officers posing as criminals to draw confessions from suspects.
Well, in the Mr. Big operation, the police create a fictitious criminal organization and then seduce the target into joining it. And over the course of the operation, they engage the target in various criminal actions with a lucrative payoff. And they also establish a pretty strong social relationship with him or her. And eventually, the issue of the previous crime that they think was committed comes up, and they let him know that the boss of the organization, referred to as Mr. Big, can assist the target in putting this behind him or her, but they need the details.
In Mr. Big cases where the undercover officers obtain a confession and the case goes to trial, the RCMP report a 95% conviction rate. Kyle Unger's sting operation began by an undercover officer named Larry Forbes befriending Kyle and was tasked with conveying to him that there was an opportunity available to become involved in the criminal organization.
Larry tells me that you whack somebody. That's fucking excellent. It's the kind of thing that, I know that I'm dealing with somebody that's on my fucking, somebody that I can trust. That's the kind of person I'm looking for.
Here in his own words, Kyle explains why he would ever falsely confess to a crime he didn't commit.
Well, you take a man who was down and out, destitute, homeless, jobless, and you offer him more money beyond his dreams, and you can make that man say anything you want him to say.
Welcome to Channel 6 News. I'm Monica Shpetsky. Breaking news this evening. There has been a conviction in the murder of 16-year-old Bridget Grenier. The jury has found both suspects Kyle Unger and Timothy Houlihan guilty of first-degree murder.
The media has a large role in many serious crimes because it is something that appeals to the public. In Kyle Unger's case, the media portrayed him as an individual with a temper and weird.
The only physical evidence against Kyle Unger was a hair found on the victim's sweatshirt that Dangerfield argued could be Unger's. At the time, there was no definitive way to prove that.
At the time, the court relied on hair microscopy as a science which is now seen as completely unreliable.
Microscopic hair comparison is not based on sound science. We do not know what percentage of the population has hair with particular microscopic characteristics.
In addition, the bite marks found on Bridget's body proved to be inconsistent with Kyle's bites, but nevertheless, people still believed his guilt.
In the early 80s, the province's star prosecutor was a name to remember, George Dangerfield.
George Dangerfield was a Manitoba prosecutor who has been responsible for the wrongful conviction of at least 2 other Canadians, including Thomas Sofino and James Driscoll. Dangerfield was seen as a powerful and likable lawyer who often took on difficult cases and won.
His reputation was impeccable. He was clean. He didn't have any... You could trust him. And look at, I did. Not just for reputation. I knew the guy, I thought.
When you say you could trust him, you mean you felt that you could trust him?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, that's why I thought.
With the exoneration of both Driscoll and Sofino, an inquiry called the Driscoll Inquiry was produced, which prompted Aidwick to review several other cases that were tried by Dangerfield, including Kyle Unger. All of these factors contributed to a miscarriage of justice, as these do not entail a fair trial.
A common element to the cases that you keep seeing arise again and again is the prosecution, Mr. Dangerfield, calling disreputable witnesses, be they jailhouse informants or simply unsavory individuals, and failing to disclose deals that have been made with them, bargains that have been entered into with them, monies that have been paid to them, and previous statements in some cases that they've made which contradict what they're now saying in court.
He was just a rough, shrewd prosecutor, and he was out for victory at any cost.
Kyle maintained his innocence throughout the 14 years he spent in prison. Kyle Unger described his experience in prison as a life of violence, blood, and death. In 2004, the committee reviewed Kyle Unger's conviction. They tested the single hair that was found on Bridget's sweater that at the time was believed to belong to Kyle. However, DNA analysis scientifically proved the strand of hair did not belong to Kyle Unger. Without this piece of evidence, the Crown's case was substantially weakened, as the only evidence remaining was the Mr. Big confession. Unger was then granted bail pending the minister's decision. This was his first taste of freedom in 14 years. The federal minister of justice ordered a new trial. 4 years later, Unger's name was finally cleared when on October 23, 2009, Manitoba's Deputy Attorney General formally withdrew the charges against Kyle and asked that he officially be acquitted.
What is this moment like for you right now?
First day of the rest of my life, a new beginning.
Okay. You guys careful.
After Kyle Unger's charges were withdrawn, the Manitoba Crown refused to offer Kyle any compensation for the 14 years he spent in prison and blamed him for his wrongful conviction because of his false confession during the Mr. Big sting operation.
Without the confession, he would not have been convicted. 12 men and women in a jury convicted him.
In 2011, Kyle Unger launched a $14.5 million civil lawsuit against the RCMP officers and prosecutors involved in his case, but the court date to settle has still not been decided. When individuals who are wrongly convicted are released back into society, they are not given the support and resources that some individuals received when they actually did commit the crime. They are not directed to any guidance, jobs, or shelter like those who are released on parole. Reintegration is therefore extremely challenging, especially in Kyle Unger's case where he spent 14 years in prison. There were times when Kyle Unger actually wanted to be put back into prison because of the familiarity and safety of institutionalized living. In cases where individuals are deemed wrongfully convicted, many people in the public still believe they are the ones who did it. Kyle Unger unfortunately has to live with people believing his guilt and labeling him as a murderer and a monster. His wrongful conviction didn't only affect him, it affected the life of his family as well.
As for Kyle Unger, he's at home in Merritt, British Columbia, doing what he did when he was imprisoned at 19, tinkering with old cars, trying not to think about the 14 years he lost.
I just want my life back, and I want to get on with it. And you can't do that by sitting around hating everybody and moping and feeling sorry for yourself.
In Kyle Unger's case, the Canadian justice system failed him in multiple ways that inevitably led to his wrongful conviction. These things included, but are not limited to,